Shatmo.
Working in that space, I would say it depends on which playground the existing SA retailer chose to play or where they're playing. Because for some retail categories, the retailers will not be affected by these e-commerce. Amazon is actually a good thing in selling on those platforms. So where before it was mostly Take a Lot and then to an extent Zando, now increases competition on the side of the independent retailer. So it's no longer one-sided sort of game because before the Take a Lots were the market leaders, so they were dictating the terms. Um, so I think that's how I would see it. I would mostly say it depends on which playground you.
African retailers. I think one cannot deny the pressures that it's also bringing into the big players. So particularly in clothing, I mean, you mentioned your Shane, You mentioned your Temu. So there is a real type of threat that it is introducing to the market. But then again, with that comes the opportunity for our businesses to be, innovative, to look for ways in which to collaborate. So introducing more opportunities for omni-channel, and where you've got your offline ways, South African businesses, particularly the bigger sized ones, have actually been quite big players there, but also just, online opportunities as well. So how do we best partner? How do we best collaborate with the leaders in, these online platforms, whereby we can sort of master this omni-channel way in which to speak to our customers, and also just not forgetting the muscle that we have built as a country, that intuitive muscle of understanding who our customer is and being able to speak to our customers. So it really is time for us to tap into what exactly it is that we've come to understand over these years that we've been servicing these markets, and that intuition of understanding that market, and being able to use that with the opportunities that are presented.
It's a pledge.
Sorry, there was feedback that I was getting just now. But yeah, in closing part of the comment, this part of the comment, I just wanted to say, just take it as an opportunity, partnering it with what we already know about our market, and using whatever opportunities that are being presented to the market.
Thank you, Nonelelo. Anybody else who would like to?
I think, apologies for that, I missed a little bit. Sorry. Go for it. Sorry, I was just saying, Charlene, that I missed a bit of it because of my connectivity. And so I was just making sure that we still put on the first part around challenges. But please go, and I'll go after you.
No problem. Thanks, Jim. Right. I just wanted to add on, I think the first two speakers have said it, but yeah, competition is always good. And I think in this case, it really does just force us to look beyond and out of the box. And we really need to look at ways of not how we can, I don't want to say actually compete with them in doing the same thing, but maybe doing things differently. Definitely from a digital transformation point of view, we definitely have to do something differently. We know that in South Africa, we're not as advanced as a lot of these global countries are. And just literally forces us to look in-house. And as I say, to start getting out of our boxes and look beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think from my side, the four key areas that I sort of thought about thinking about this question was, and I'm sure that the other speakers have mentioned it, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, was around the technological adaptation. So I think if you've given the examples of Amazon, Shein, Temu, these players haven't just shifted and disrupted the consumer behavior market, but also how other competitors, not just in the clothing industry, but in all retail industry, has to be on the cutting edge of any technological advancements, etc. Because if they don't do that, they will find themselves falling further and further behind in the industry that they're competing with. I think something that also I thought about was the fact that, before you almost competed in your specific market, even as retailers, irrespective of what it is that you're selling, but we are basically now in a global market. It's not just about looking at what's relevant within your local market, whether it's within in Southern Africa or Africa, but you're also competing with global demands, because the consumers' behaviors have shifted, because they've been sort of exposed to other products or services that they now have ease of access to. And it's not just about making ourselves competitive in those markets, but also how do we look at the infrastructure and barriers within our environment that will allow us to compete more effectively in this almost local market, if you will call it that. And so, yeah, so the big thing for me is the fact that as
Just maybe we lost Tembi. Tembi?
And so I think for retailers in particularly, it's now about defining what is going to be their niche, what is going to be the targeted consumer, because soon, if we are not careful, most retailers are going to try and compete with everything and be everything to everyone. So that was just some of my thinking around that.
So, yeah, thanks. We lost you in between, Tembi, but I think you were talking about infrastructure for globalization, global market, and getting to your niche. If I could, connect it all. Anybody else that would to talk about challenges?
If I may, I would like to raise one point. All the speakers I agree 100% with. I think one thing we have to be aware of is our stakeholder demands are really front and foremost. So we need to be socially resilient and inclusive and look towards our stakeholders. We do have global competition, very strong global competition, but let's not forget that many large retailers have lost money. And I won't mention retailers present, but look at Woolworths, who purchased the David Jones brand for 21 billion and 8 years later they had to sell it off for 1.1 billion. We do make mistakes. So I think if anything, this has to make us more agile and more aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Dr. Berry, you've got your hand up. I'm not sure if that is in error.
Okay, we mean on this one.
Yeah, it was. It's a legacy, and thanks, Nonalila. You'd like to add something to it? On
yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, hello, Dr. Khan. So I think what I want to contribute is what I think is I think Toby's mic is on.
This was this one. This one is someone bigger, famous.
Kaya, can you assist Emily? I think we are hearing an echo.
Yeah, that's confusing. I see that my name is on another thing, but I'm not logged in any way.
Can I continue?
Yes, you can continue. I think the problem, someone else might have had their mics on and then we're getting a feedback, but it's okay on our side.
I think what I'm seeing is that this brings about a challenge for various sizes of businesses. If I look at my panelists, I think the business that I work for is possibly smaller in size. However, we have been able to introduce our brand to markets that would ordinarily perhaps not have had opportunity to introduce our brand to through online presence. And this gives us a footprint in areas that we don't have physical stores or brick and mortar stores. So I think this is an amazing challenge. And I think instead of, fearing these big giants that are coming into our shores, we just grab it, and show that we know our customer and we compete and we take it on. So I think that is basically what I wanted to contribute to that, because I've seen it practically in the business that I am employed in, and the opportunity that it brings about in terms of brand positioning, perhaps.
I think you have 2 tabs.
So beautiful. It's lovely that we have opened up, the discussion about
understand because I'm getting
part of all of us. Now, the second theme is about sustainability of the perspective. Remember, we are just entering into e-commerce perspective, where possibly the way to succeed is through low prices and offering extensive product range, and that looks in itself a contradiction. low prices and extensive product range. So anybody else would like to take a perspective on the same?
Dr. Nishikant, I think when we speak of value as South Africans and understanding the fact that price is quite an important thing for us as South Africans, but when we speak of values, we do not always refer to price. We speak about other forms of value. We are quite an aspirational country. So gone are those days where a simple study of LSMs was going to, I guess, make one, was going to cause one to be successful in understanding the markets that South Africa is. Because right now, in one store that would previously have been segmented in a way where you would think you would get more sort of higher old tradition LSM, right now you have multiple LSMs from the lowest up until the highest in one store. And those are the sort of residue of the other challenges that we have, such as inequality in the country. That's causing, the same, or various types of consumers to shop at the same, and I'm now speaking of offline, so physically, to sort of shop at the same, type of shop. So one cannot say they can get away with that whole sort of old LSM type of study. It's the same as online. I mean, as said previously, we're quite aspirational. So there's no assumption that, the to shop online is available at a certain sort of segment of the market. So when you then speak of value, you're speaking of different things across all. And as South Africans, we're quite a market that is attuned with what we believe in. We are advocates of certain things, and so it's important for organizations that they understand that price is quite a big thing, but it's not the only thing, in the market. South Africans want to understand, who they align with or who they spend their money with. What do they believe in? What would they stand for? What do they do? What is their presence, within the environment that we are all living in? What is their social responsibility? So I think that what we can then do to, I guess, drive our brand is not only speak about value from a price point of view, but also speak about value from how do you stretch your money point of view. So for an example, if I've got 100 Rand to spend, I would rather spend the entire 100 Rand on that sort of one item, knowing full well that 100 Rand is going to be stretched into other ways in which to, improve the environment versus, saving the 10 Rand within that 100 Rand and spending 90 Rand for whatever it is that I'm going to sort of consume or buy, knowing that I'm saving, but, I do not know where it's going. So over and above the price and obviously the advantage of target marketing that these big online brands might have, where if I'm looking for whatever it is, I'm going to see that advert, I'm going to see that Shein, I'm going to see that Temu. But I'd rather want to be part of an organization where you see me by searching me, and when you do see me, you are interested, versus seeing me as I'm now referring to a brand and quickly just pressing that cross and trying to remove. We'd rather have fewer customers looking for us and looking for what we are about and engaging in what we are about than them seeing us via algorithm and just being so quick to sort of dismiss us because they do not buy anything that we are selling over and above value.
That's so beautiful, Nanilela. because I think collectively we all understand the importance of value, not only from the cost perspective, but possibly from the benefit that customer is seeking from that purchase. So I love every minute of you talking about a stretch perspective on the value. Anybody else would like to expand on the perspective of low prices versus extensive product range and sustainability perspective?
If I may,
Go ahead.
Nonalelo, just to add on to what you said, we're seeing more and more the impact of ESG, environment, social, and governance. And we do have local South Africans, us, very proud to invest in products from companies that are socially invested, that provide training, long-term employment, and promote organically from within. I really believe that is where we will get sustainability from.
So
Thank you.
So beautiful, Barry. I think.
Thanks, Dr. Betty. Yeah. So I think from my side, just to maybe sum up some of what Noni mentioned and even Dr. Betty, I think it's around really being deliberate around what's that point of differentiation, and not just from a product price, but what sets your brand apart from how it's rooted in your local environments or partners with local craftsmanship, etc., depending on what your brand is. So there is an opportunity to really make sure that your brand is locally rooted in your environment. And I think to the points made earlier on is that as South Africans, especially in this context, there is there's a heart to that. So when you see something is locally produced, or you see the supply chain has been intentional to ensure upliftment of communities, etc., there is going to be individuals that resonate a lot more deeper to that brand. And through that, you could start also looking at how to make it more not just sustainable from a supply chain point of view, but also ensuring that the ecosystem is one that is making sure that it has all the right touch points. So it's something that maybe potentially doesn't need to be always, a part of your imports and exports, but can be locally produced and locally also made available to your consumers. I think also something, and we were doing a bit of a case study on a clothing industry that is now trying to really rebrand itself as a sustainable product line. And so I think there's two parts to that, is that understanding what that means, and because we need to
I'm loving every minute of it when, we are talking about Ralph Nadar's perspective of taking care of the ecosystem, which Temi was expanding on.
Locally rooted brand, and then also how do you start?
Go ahead,
sorry?
Temi. Go ahead, please. We lost you in between.
Sorry, my connectivity. Just so that you know, I'm out in looking at a site at the moment for one of our programs, so my connection is a little bit bad. But I was saying that there's a big opportunity to, this rebranding of your brand in your environment, to not just differentiate it in terms of value, but also educate your consumers around it. So as you, as an organizational brand, is going on a journey of whether it is around the sustainability angle, you can educate your consumers through that process as well. And I really like this idea of sustainability, recycling. And so one of the things that some clothing companies doing is actually requesting that consumers bring back their clothing, and you can recycle it. And potentially there's an opportunity not just of wastage of clothing, or recycling, reusing sort of sustainable products to produce more. And so, when we start getting creative like this, and I think Donnie mentioned it in the first part, that with these challenges sometimes come great opportunities to think different, and it's not always going to be a monetary process, but more a sustainable supply chain process, as an example.
So wonderful, Abby. So anybody else would like to talk about these challenges in e-commerce perspective?
I'll go. How can the local retailers effectively compete on these low prices? I'll come from a perspective of a sort of a mid-sized, small or mid-sized retailer. I think it's through differentiation and also try to become a niche player. Because when you play in the commodities space, you need volume to win. You won't be able to play in there. And also the other thing is the bigger retailers have got deep pockets where they can try a few things. You can influence your supply chain. You can do this, but depending on what size retailer you are, you're better off. There's certain playgrounds where you just don't go, but focus on differentiation and niche. So, for instance, in my case, where it's a niche, for instance, footwear or niche type, clothing, so you tend to be fine. You're not playing, in that space where you need high volumes. So it's one way, because the minute you go there, it's a tussle.
Thanks, Bennett, for the perspective, a mid-sized perspective on differentiation and niche. That's the way. Shelley, you would like to?
No, I agree with all the previous speakers. I just want to add as well that maybe we should also educate our customers more on sustainable, ethical practices and also more ethical labor practices, because we all know that with many of these brands, they've got child labor going, etc. And just yesterday I heard of some of these brands have actually a lot of their, I think it was over 180 of their products cosmetic products have been withdrawn due to toxic substances and ingredients being in them. So these are things that we also just need to educate our customers on. I do think we have very clever customers, but a lot of them, as one of the speakers mentioned, they often do just look at price and nothing else.
So wonderful. I think it was a tough thing to take a perspective, because I think it looks very contradictory to each other. Low prices and extensive product range, and so level playing field. Let me shift the focus to our focus area on what would be possible strategies for small and independent retailers, because I think they also contribute in the form of the economy that they bring to townships and informal markets. And what they have a different kind of challenges, than possibly, a big retailer would be facing. So anybody can take a perspective on that.
So Tembi and I will love this question, because we represent a brand that's not only a big brand that is listed, but a brand that's really created and grown small businesses. Because as you would know, that SPAR stores are owner managed. So really our model has really built strong retailers, strong, legacies of families who have come through the SPAR brands being entrenched in the communities that they serve, and really servicing those communities and building and passing on those businesses, from one generation, to the next. So we are very passionate about, small businesses and the creativity that they can show in, particularly in challenging times. And that has really been the strength of our brand, in that when we come together, it's actually really small business owners that are coming together with buying power and with a strong brand behind them, and they are able to show up, as big, and stand together as big businesses. So I'd just like to speak of ego, because that's something that we are quite aware of as a concept, and it is a concept that also contributes a lot in terms of leadership. So if you were to think of ego as as a leadership concept, it's good in that the sort of bigger or more sort of defined it is. One looks at things like image. It plays a huge role. Ego as a concept plays a huge role in building your image and protecting your image. So there's a lot of strength, that it comes with that we sometimes downplay as human beings because we just only want to look at the negative. But the opposite is true, even if you look at that strength, because at times you would overanalyze, something because, that ego is protecting you against the fear of failure. And at times it's more inflated. So the bigger the sort of brand or the business, the more sort of inflated it would be, or the more it would show up. And the smaller the business, it doesn't take away its presence, but it might not be as pronounced. And when that is the case with small businesses, they allow themselves space to fail because they fail. Sometimes they fail in sort of small quantums and be able to rebuild quickly. And that failure becomes, quite a stepping stone for innovation, because there isn't anything as a failure that is totally useless. Every crisis does present an opportunity. So the great thing around this concept of ego with small businesses is that one, they do not have the resources, and this is a generalized statement, or they have limited resources for analysis paralysis because there isn't departments that have to deal with data and data analysis or whatever. So whatever data that they've got at their disposal, they are quick to look at it and quick to make decisions based on that data. They are quick to implement because that ego has not been so overinflated that they are not willing or open to the possibility that they could fail. And when they fail quickly, and then they get up quickly and they take the learning quickly and then do something else or refine whatever it is that they had done, to sort of build. So one of the strengths in this whole, idea of well-rounded and well-developed businesses, particularly for small businesses, is that they take those opportunities to learn and relearn quite quickly and in quite inexpensive ways, because they keep taking information, failing where they fail, refine, succeed the first time, learn from that success, do something bigger, make it a sort of a stepping stone. And so their processes are quite quicker. Because if we were to take, and you can call it anywhere else, anything else, I just used ego as a known, concept to all of us, as a simplistic concept to all of us, to say small businesses have a way of working with this concept of ego to their benefit. That sometimes big businesses, because of the same thing, sort of take longer or fear to fail, and therefore not taking the learnings that need to come from processes.
Well, that's nice that the small businesses are very, very agile. That's a beautiful way, and I think the way we are talking about the perspective in terms of threat is always a disguised opportunity. Thank you so much, Nongalelo. Anybody else would like to take a perspective on small independent retailers?
Dr. Nisha, I'll come in there because I think we also operate a little bit in the township market. And I must say, when I saw this topic, I thought a lot about SPAR, and I was looking forward to hearing what the colleagues would say about their successes, in that particular market. I think I agree with Nongalelo that I think it gives an opportunity to operate because you have a more flatter structure. and therefore you are flexible and your decision making is fluid. So you are able to respond quickly to the needs of the customer, because you are slightly smaller and you are able to just tap into that whatever is required kind of decision making. So and I mean, our brand, we are only in the Western Cape, and we do have a store that is in a township environment, and we've learned from that particular store that it's not business as usual, if I may put it that way. So you need to be able to respond very quickly to a particular need in that environment. But it also gives you a lot of lessons, and maybe it can also humble you in a lot of ways as a brand. And I think there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of value in that market.
So wonderful, Sangafi. I think the humbling experience that surely it is. Annette, Tembi, Charlene, Barry, your take on small independent retailers?
Yeah, I will
Just add, sorry, Bennett.
Go ahead, Charlene.
Dr. Nishikant, I just want to maybe add, I think it ties in with what the two previous panelists have said, but there's no better place to learn than from each other. And I think these small retailers and the informal settlement guys, they mustn't be scared to talk to each other. It doesn't have to be someone who's in exactly the same space as them selling the same products, but it's great to speak to each other. Collaboration and network is key, and I've seen beautiful projects that have come out of collaboration and networking. So that's definitely a strategy that these smaller retailers mustn't think that it's just invaluable, because it's of great value.
Sure. Thanks, Charlene. I think networking that much more important for sure. Bennett, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just to add on what has been said, also some of the things that I've observed is that some existing smaller retailers in the townships are already practicing some of their strategies, because I believe that they are also operating on the bottom of the pyramid sort of space, and they are closer to the customer. And in most cases, they are agile to the customer needs. Talking about the bottom of the pyramid concept, they are the ones that unpackage certain products to fit that space. Example, cigarettes, where they sell in singles and not, whole pack. So it just shows that being closer and being agile to the customer's needs are some of the strategies that would assist a township or a smaller retailer to thrive.
So wonderful, Bennett, of speaking of bottom of the pyramid. I recall 20 years back, India used to contribute with this small packaging to the tune of sales volume to 10%. Now it actually amounts to 50% sales volume coming out of because of this small packaging. So well said, man. Tembi seems to be possibly struggling with.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tembi.
Hi there. Sorry, I'm not going to switch on my camera. I'm just mindful that at times I'm losing the connection, so I wouldn't want to be repeating what's been said. But I think the biggest thing, if we take it back to home around on our brand, I think we've got many retailers that are small, that are starting up in communities, and I think that has been their secret to success has really been rooted in their communities, creating those collaborative efforts and making sure that, not only are they creating an oasis sometimes in an environment that doesn't look like it should have this beautiful brand or store even sitting there, that it employs local people and even local vendors. So there's been fascinating stories and success stories of how retailers have adopted small vendors to actually be set up outside of the store initially, and over time has become sort of a supplier for them. So there are many creative ways that when you are small, that you have license to operate so much more quicker and with less red tape, because you don't have some of the bureaucracy. And I think that's very exciting. I think maybe the challenge comes in when you want to go bigger and then you are faced with a lot more red tape. But I think the biggest thing for me is about looking at the local opportunities, who are the people that are in your environment that you can collaborate more with. And we've seen the success of that even going through lootings and other sort of terrible issues like the rainfall in the KZN, etc., the flooding, where communities actually then come together and support raising up your brand again. And so I think that is something very special and has been a secret recipe, not a secret anymore, but a recipe to success for smaller brands growing in communities.
I think being closer to communities is always way to success. Anything you would like to add to this, Barry? Now, our focus, I'm shifting our focus to upskilling and developing side of it. So, what do you think with these new technologies like analytics, AI, algorithm-based responses, virtual realities perspective? Like, what challenges our employees are facing? So, I open the floor for everybody. Of us are practicing human resource people and talent acquisition and retaining people. Yeah, Shalin seems to be, loving that.
That's a big one for me on my side. One of the biggest challenges, and I think all the retailers would say the same, is the lack of training time. Firstly, we know that we are in a very, very busy, fast-paced industry, long hours. Employees get home after dark, quite often completely dark, and leave dark in the morning. So yeah, time is of the essence, where we've got to look at the way that we are going to bring in any new technologies or any new structures or anything that where training is going to be involved. We've got to make it short. We've got to make it as simple as possible, because if it's complex, it takes even longer, and then it just stresses the employees out and they actually just give up. But yeah, one of the biggest challenges, I must say, is the time. And then also training support. Often operations thinks that they send people for training, they come back and all systems go. And it's actually that after training support, which is even more important, in that those employees have to be supported in that they can practice what they've learned. And it has to be reinforced, and it has to be supported through motivational discussions after the training. So yeah, there's lots more I can add, but I want the panelists to have a chance as well.
I think you're spot on creating those bite sizes,
Yes.
So, that's wonderful. Yeah, I open the floor. Emmy, would you like to try?
Okay, I'm happy to add on to Charlene. So I think you spot on, Charlene. I think that is a big constraint in retail environment. It is just so fast paced, and I think it's even become worse now with the pressures in organizations with even leaner structures. So the time to actually send employees out for training has become more of an ask for retailers, not just because of time constraints, but also because of capacity within stores or within your retail setup. So over and above that, I think some of the big areas that I've been noticing is obviously the digital literacy. So I think more and more we are moving into this digital world, and unfortunately, that is the new mode of learning. Whether you are doing in-person, online, etc. training, there is a digital element to almost all training. So I think that is an ongoing challenge, and how we actually enable that digital skills and literacy within our environments with our employees. And then coupled with that is just how the skills of the future is shifting constantly. So it's about ensuring that not only are we enabling and empowering our people for current environment that they're operating in, but the environment is shifting so fast that the future skill sets you even need to start keeping abreast of. And so if we're not even having sufficient time to upskill where they're currently at, let alone for where the future is going to actually need them. So that's from a digital space. And I think also there's been this ongoing, almost underlying tremor of fear and anxiety in most employees with all the changes. If you think about COVID, if you think about the new technology coming in, and so you have this ongoing resistance to change, even though it's the inevitable. And so couple that with the digital literacy and the skill sets changing because our environments are changing is that you're having a workforce that is constantly in fear also when it comes to learning and almost passing, learning new skills or roles, because they are desperately holding on to what they believe is safe and what they know. And then lastly, I think also is that, and we go back to digital and systems, is that many organizations are automating a lot of their processes. They are bringing systems in place. And if we are not bridging that gap around what the capabilities and the skill sets our current employees have versus the systems that we're bringing in and enabling them to comfortably navigate and be able to work in that space, we are always going to find gaps in terms of effectively optimizing the systems that we are bringing into the workplace. So it's very multifaceted, and I think you can even have a panel discussion for a whole day on this, because there are so many ways where we could potentially solve this. But I think it really takes a collaborative effort, not just from how retail industry can enable learning in the environment, but also partnering with your sectors and private and public sectors to create spaces where learning just becomes a lot more intuitive in the workplace, so that it can be an ongoing thing that happens while you are working. So that's what I think. Yeah.
So wonderful.
Dr. Nish, I wanted to really agree with Thembi. I think what I wanted to add is it's important to have the right partners in learning and development. I think you need partners that will be committed to understanding your business and the specific needs in your business, and partners that will be flexible in customizing when necessary, and having a long-term focus relationship with a partner that will sort of grow with you and so on and adapt with you. And I think that I found to be very beneficial. I think it's very important to have, even if you have an assorted of partners, but you craft your stakeholdership in a way that works for your particular business, because it's not a case of one size fits all. So I think that's very, very important as you decide on a strategy of learning and development.
So wonderful. May I shift a little focus, Bennett, if that's okay with you? Yep. Because I think collectively, we are seeing that, to remain competitive, we need to constantly develop, our workforce. What in your opinion is the way to remain the competitiveness in our workforce operating in retail space? Over to you, Bennett.
I think it boils down to staff training, and also depending on what area of operation the specific workforce is. But yeah, the training, if it's the front side of things and the customer service, and when using an example is, for instance, the front end of apparel or footwear retail operation is usually you would try and train them, but also make sure that they're informed on market trends and economic trends. An example is when interest rates, when there is an interest rate increase, that usually leads to certain customer behavior or consumer attitude. And when what's needed is that staff is trained to be able to meet the new realities of what that consumer is going through at that specific point in time. What are the key priorities at that specific point in time for that consumer? So assisting your workforce to be aligned to the environmental changes. That's one way of assisting them and making sure that they are current.
Thank you, Bennett. Nanalilo, would you like to give your perspective on how to remain competitive for our workforce?
I think a lot has been said, and in addition to that, what I'd like to add is just rewarding employees for the skills and attitudes that they refine and that they have, naturally. So, for an example, influence. Influence is quite a big skill of the future, and while it can be refined, influence is really one of those things that you either have the flair of it or you don't, and there are people who can learn and refine it. However, I think it's important for employers to be able to notice what is it that our people have and what can we refine. And also not forgetting that, as much as retail is the biggest employer in South Africa, but it's also a biggest employer across all sort of levels of employment. When you speak of your unskilled, your semi-skilled, your skilled, so it really employs across, and so it's quite imperative for retail leaders to be able to have that natural flair for recognition of prior learning or just innate skills that people have, and capitalizing on that, because there's really certain people who will service your customers from who they are naturally, and you can just capitalize on that and build the skill and formalize the skill and sort of provide that opportunity for formal learning. But quite important that we really spot what are those things, like for instance critical thinking, and there's people who've got the flair for that, reasoning, data. While data can certainly be learned in terms of data interpretation and decision making based on whatever interpreted data that there is, there's people who have naturally done that for years, having built experience in a certain type of job. So as retail leaders, we're going to have to refine the skill of spotting, those skills and talents on people, and be able to capitalize on that and be able to utilize that as well.
My apologies, I think we are running a little short on time. So my last question, straight to the person that actually is sitting on the chair. Zengafi, over to you. South African government and WRCTA is doing quite a lot in terms of empowering and creating perspective on sustainability, transparency, ethical perspective. And I think the responsibility also goes to us in creating conscious consumerism. And I think millennials and Gen Zs are big on that they do not mind paying extra bucks for buying a conscious product. What is your take on the future direction and development and growth of the industry that we are in?
I see Tembi is taking a bite.
Tembi, would you like to? Tembi?
It actually wasn't me. It's my doppelganger in the group that's like speaking. I don't know if they got my name as the invite, but there's definitely another Tembi Topham that's signed in. That's not me. So please ask that Tembi Topham. So Tembi Topham number 2, please.
Actually. And the industry needs more Tambis to solve our problems. Yeah. If you could assist us, please, that would be wonderful.
As a joke, Tembi, I'm a twin, so I thought this would be happening to me and not to you.
Well, some of us had wished for a twin, so maybe I need to go out there and find my twin now. Apologies for that, so I'm not too sure.
Let's go to Zingapi first, then Tembi, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think just to put it simply for me is that as industry, we need to get involved. I think it's important that we partner up with the institutions of higher learning, and also I like what Nonelela said about being an influence, and just be influencers, in the industry, and not sit by and hope for things to happen. And also, look at how do we contribute towards academia, that we are going to, we're going to source that talent eventually to come onto our workplaces, So we need to then be more proactive in collaborating with the input, So I think that's what my basic understanding of what the wholesale and retail leadership chairs are trying to do, in doing this through research and other interventions. But I think if we just leave it at the universities and so on, it just sits there in academia, and people, with the big talkers, you know what I mean? But it does not translate to the skills that we are looking for. So I think it's very, very important that we become participants and get involved and really influence the output that we eventually going to be tapping into for our skills.
So wonderful, Zingapi. Over to you, Tembi, and apologies, we are likely to exceed our time by 5-7 minutes. Over to you, Tembi.
Thank you so much. So I agree completely with Zingapi, and I think that what we also need to look at in terms of these collaborative efforts, I think there needs to be a deliberate way of easing some of the bureaucracy. So I'll give an example. Sometimes there's an intent and will from both potentially private sector and public sector to resolve or work together in solving something. And many times it's the red tape or the process that we undertake that holds us back from really reaching some of these milestones more quickly and effectively together. And so I think that in the spirit of collaboration, I think that there's an opportunity for minds to come together. And I'm always so amazed when attending some of these lectures and seeing some of the brilliant frameworks and approaches that do come out of academia. But I think more importantly, how do we translate that in a very practical way that makes it not just applicable, but something that can be practically applied in both private and public sector, and bringing those two forces together? Because I honestly believe that if you could have that sort of approach in dealing with some of these complexities and issues that we are facing in the industry, we can honestly move mountains. Excuse the analogy, but honestly, there's nothing that's stopping the minds that we currently have in our environment to overcome this. It's just about how do we manage the way we are going to do it and organize ourselves in a way that will allow for that in a more sustainable way and that is free from, someone mentioned ego or corruption or something that wants it in for themselves, but to a greater picture of resolve and really being able to overcome some of these barriers that we are facing.
I'm loving every minute of it. The way Charlene talked about thinking out of box and database decision making. Normally was talking about, and Bennett was talking about ego. Interestingly enough, at Regenesis, we take pride in actually creating 6 graduate attributes, which two of them were spoken here, grounding your decisions on the basis of evidence and thinking no box in factor, like what our, the founding, group has said, that think no box. And I think I have worked in more than 10 organizations in my 40 years of career, and I haven't seen any better focused organization in terms of working on EQ and SQ, and possibly that addresses to Bannett's perspective of whether you're small or big enterprise. You must take care of decision making, not based on ego and past experiences, but at times humbling experience. That was something somebody was saying. I open the floor for last one or two comments. Then I would love to. It was handful. Possibly what we could not have learned in reading 100 books in possibly 5 years came out in this discussion. I wish we had a little more time, but I know time is precious for all of us. So I want to thank all of you. But before that, I'll open the floor for last one or two responses. Maybe Barry, maybe Bennett, maybe Charlene, maybe Monlelo, Zangafi, Tandy. Anybody, floor is yours.
I'd like to thank everyone here today. I've learned a great deal more, so thank you so much. And again, I can't stress the need for micro-credentials and not training for training's sake, but upskilling our people to do what they need to do comfortably and not become terrified of the digital world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very so much. Anybody with last comment, or should I just sum up a little bit? I can't sum up. Well, this is a handful because I think it's good enough for me for possibly the next 2 years of my sessions with the students. I thank everybody. More specifically, when we were talking about challenges, Bennett said, some retailers may not get being affected, how to compete on low prices. He was talking about differentiation and niche, and I think that was to a little extent. Charlene was also speaking about talk about what sets your brand apart and keep it locally rooted. There were other perspectives on differentiation that was being discussed. A heart perspective, that was Charlene's perspective. Barry, know your customer, hence you can make a difference. Various sizes. Zangafi said various sizes, online presence can assist them. Socially invested in smaller sizes that we are. Interesting. There was on training side. There was a discussion going on. We do not have that much of time. Maybe digital is the space that can answer that. And I'm reminded when Charlene was mentioning this, and then later on Tembi was also mentioning that perspective on bite size and after support perspective. I'm reminded of Starbucks, when they realize that they have sensitivity issues happening in USA, they actually closed. And I think that's a big heart. You need a big heart to understand the sincerity and necessity of if things are not going in the right direction. Nonlele talked about data-based decision making. Threat is always disguised opportunity. So a handful, and I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you, Dr. Barry, Charlene, Bennett, Nonalelo, Zagafi, and Tembi. Tembi, it must have been possibly on my side that I must have been your twin that was actually creating problems on this side. Because when I typed the message, it went only to you. So possibly.
Oh, my word.
Now you
There's four of them on the line. There's four TV topics on the line.
Possibly it was me.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Messing up. Thank you, everybody. We know your time is precious, and anytime if we can collaborate, anytime we can contribute to your problem that you're facing in your organization, we are just a call away from you. Just touch us, me, Barry, and our entire team would love to contribute, assist you in your training, and yeah, money doesn't matter. What matters is can we improve our collective growth as a country, and can we contribute to those numbers which are exceedingly high. And I think that's where retail can come a big way to assist our unemployment numbers, because it doesn't require you to be an engineer. It doesn't require you. So if you have a, in your heart, if you have a service-oriented perspective, people-oriented perspective, that is what it takes to make it successful in retail. So thank you, everybody, for your contribution. I loved every minute of it, and I hope we can engage further in this. God bless you all. Thank you so much. It was honor and privilege of mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Then this is done, and then we come here, we end the stream.